Welcome back to Stepping Into Your Leadership. I'm your host, Christine Courtney, and I'm excited to have my pal here in the studio with me today. Hey, Greg, it's Greg Shamie.
Greg Shamie, Courtney, nice to see you.
I'm having Greg back because not only did he have the most listened to episode ever in their first 100 episodes. And when we looked back and we're like, what is that episode about? And why are so many people listening? And there were two of them. One was way back in the very beginning. I think it was in the very beginning of 2024. Maybe the end of 2023. It was our 9th episode ever. It was called Mastering Presentation Skills. And then we did a follow-up to that because that was so popular. In late November, like around Thanksgiving time, it came out of 2024, which was Mastering Dynamic Presentations, Action Tips for Any Setting. And again, it is a topic that comes back and back and back because people need more of it. And we're seeing that, right? In the age of AI, human connection is becoming even more important and more important for folks to master. So let me give you a proper little introduction, Mr. Shamie. So in the past, when we've talked about building engagement presentations, right? We talked in the last one about your hook, your story, your visual vitality. If you did not listen to those and you're listening to this for the first time, it is worth going back to those two episodes, number 9. We'll put maybe Tatiana in the show notes can put a little playlist for you in there. But that episode really resonated. But today we're talking about something different, right? But here's the truth. You can have the best content in the world. Most you can see today is AI driven, but you're going to lose the room, right? Because at some point, it's not about what you built or what the content is. It's about how you bring it to life. And so we're going to be talking about delivery today, presence, energy, connection, and what it takes to really move a room, whether that's move a sale, whether that's move to tears, whether that's move to action. How do you move? And you're always, by the way, trying to influence or move somebody. So I'm joined today with Greg Shamie. Greg is a communications and presentation expert who works with leaders, teams, and organizations to elevate how they show up, speak up, and connect with impact. He's known for helping people move beyond just delivering information to actually commanding a room with clarity, confidence, and presence. Greg's work focuses on the practical side of communication, how you use your voice, your body, your energy to create real connection and influence. I am so proud to have worked with him for decades. What? Decades now. We look so young and youthful, but we've worked together we were babies. He is the Senior Director of People Development here at Leadership Development Partners, more than 20 years helping leaders and teams connect performance to purpose. He is an internationally recognized facilitator and keynote speaker, leading hundreds, thousands of workshops over time on topics like emotional intelligence, perseverance, leadership, and for this today, most importantly, delivering dynamic presentations. He has worked with companies like PwC, Naveen, Tradeweb, Brooklyn Brewery, New York City Department of Education, Mount Sinai, and the list goes on and on and on. What makes Greg's work approach especially unique is his background as a professional actor combined with his master's in educational theater from NYU. He brings a powerful blend of performance, presence, and practical leadership into every room he works in. And everybody knows the Shamster, the ShamWow, the Shamie. My friend, Greg, welcome to the show.
What a big introduction. My goodness, I was not expecting that. Please email it to me after. I'd like to have that bio. Thank you.
It is a pleasure. I owed you that little piece of love today, for sure. So let's just jump in right here because you are, I think, a master at this. You're also really warm and friendly. So people that are very nervous, it's the number one thing people are more nervous than death is public speaking. So if you're going to be nervous like that, you want Greg Shamie in there. If I'm nervous about a speech, I want to run it by Greg because by the end, I always feel better and very supported. And so that's another thing that he brings to a team. So Greg, I want to start here because I think this is where everything begins. When you watch someone present, right? How quickly do you know if they're going to really hold the room?
First 10 seconds.
Yeah.
Really, they say, it's the first 8 to 15 seconds is so important. I think we probably mentioned this in one of the past episodes, but it really is that opening energy, that opening moment is so important. And, what are we actually thinking as audience members? Is this person prepared? Are they going to be able to do this? And is it going to be engaging and interesting, or am I going to just be completely bored? And so the judge is out. The judge is out strong, and the judge is looking to see what is happening to you, which, it's already high intensity to be in the spotlight. And now people are basically judging your first 15 seconds to see whether you're going to win or lose. So it's
Yeah.
even more pressure.
And what do you think when you break it down? What are you actually seeing or feeling in those first few moments? Like, what makes you know, okay, I can relax. This person's going to be worth my time or worth my energy of sitting here, or they've got this. Like, what do you think you're actually seeing? Because I think those are sometimes intangible things that we say, but people don't really know how to translate that.
Yeah, I mean, it's fascinating when you think about getting up into that spotlight and what happens to us. You mentioned nervousness, right? And how nervous we get. Everybody gets nervous. I get nervous. I do this every day. I coach people. I need a coach if I'm going to be making a presentation. That's like such an important piece because nerves are part of the equation, and I have to figure out how to use and invest that energy into not just what I've prepared, but into my connection with the audience. And so that becomes huge. So I'm looking for, is the person acknowledging what's actually happening and dealing with it in an effective way? And that's kind of hard to teach and do, but there's something that happens when a speaker gets up there and has committed to what they've prepared and then puts themselves out there. They take the risk to really be on the edge of that cliff with the audience because it is exhilaratingly intense, right? And you can see a speaker who's like, "Hi, everybody. I'm really excited to be here today and feeling some really intense energies, and I'm excited to be able to share what I have prepared with you and see what that strikes." Like even just getting that acknowledgement of the moment can be a really strong beginning.
Yeah, I think one of the things that I notice right off the bat is is how they walk up to the center of the stage, how they stand up, if they stand up, if they're in a room around a table. Wow, is it powerful to stand up sometimes, just to talk about command like confidence that says even if you're feeling nervous inside. But that walk, right, from your chair to I saw some folks recently present at their team had an offsite, right? So they were given challenges about challenges with that they had within the company. Like how do we break down silos or things like that, right? And then they each had to work in teams and then somebody had to present. We see this all the time, versions of this, right? We've all had this. And then somebody says, "Oh, I'll present." And then that person gets up there with their chart paper and goes through the things, right? And what is everybody looking at? The chart paper with scribbled versions of things. And it was so fascinating to see the people that walk up there that really feel like are looking at the audience, looking at their teammates going, "Hey," like, or "I'm nervous. God, this is nerve wracking," or whatever, just acknowledging the moment, being more relaxed themselves. And I guarantee you, none of those folks did what you, Greg Shamie, always make people do, which is warm up their bodies and their voices so that they get some of those jitters physically out of their body. And it is incredible to me that we know this over and over and over again, that is a huge differentiator in terms of getting nerves out, yet nobody will do it. And I know it can be embarrassing to like do, flutter your lips and jump up and down in front of everyone, but go to the bathroom in a stall and do it, or just somehow shake your shoulders out or shake it out or something, because I can tell right away if they're real nervous, they tense up, you look terrible, your voice sounds tight. It's really, we've all done it,
It's
but it's
very
really hard.
very it happens to most of it happens to everybody actually, and so you have to have tools to release the tension. That's what it is. It's tension that it's shutting me down when I get into that spotlight. And so I have to have tools to like you said, breathing is the centerpiece of my whole physical being, my whole being, right? So I have to be able to breathe deep, because what happens when we get nervous is it comes up high, and then it, like you said, it chokes off the voice. So being able to communicate our ideas, have an instrument that can communicate the ideas clearly, is absolutely essential, and we have to have those tools. And just thinking of them, I'm thinking of breathing. I'm thinking, like you said, fluttering the lips, just going, just even that, ma, 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 just getting the vibrations of the sound going and practicing that can warm up the instrument so that when I step out into a more intense situation, that spotlight, I feel free. I feel free. I need to be able to feel free in that spotlight and I wrote down 3 words: committed, authentic, and connected. Those are the 3 words that I'm going for. The commitment is to my preparation. Then the authenticity is being able to be me up there. And that doesn't mean you being Greg Shamie, because you can't match my energy, right? I can't match your energy. You need to bring your authentic, best self to the spotlight, right? And then connection is what most people forget, because they're so connected to their content, they forget the audience. And the audience is the most important piece. So that connection is absolutely essential. I have to connect with you as an audience, or I'm really just doing the presentation in my room.
I love those 3 things: committed, connected, and authentic. So if I think about that, right? If you can do those 3 things, like, what are some actual behaviors that look like? So I love the committed. To me, sounds like, you're committed, you're bringing energy, you're bringing a focus to how you're saying. For you, fluttering of the lips, getting some of that tension out, or some good examples. I'll tell you, for me, I have lazy lips. So I grew up in the great state of Texas, and can be very garbled and kind of, my lips, my D's and T's are the same. Whatever it happens, my consonants get really rounded. And so I can be sometimes hard to understand, or not as crisp as I would like to be. So I have to still, before I do any presentation, I work a lot on like consonant sounds and being very crisp, because I know when I get up there that I can relax and not think about it. But if I don't do that, I'll be like, I don't blah, 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 blah.
Yeah,
Get very garbled.
yeah, we have to know what are the barriers to our clarity, right? What's stopping our ideas from being shared in dynamic and engaging ways, right? And if we can highlight that and figure that out, then we can do what you do there and warm that up in a way that's going to strengthen those areas, so that when you get out there, you're still free and you're not thinking about it, because you're not going to be able to hit the golf ball if you're thinking about hitting the golf ball. You just have to get up there and allow the preparation that you've done in the practice range to just happen, boom, and hit it, right? And it's going to be so much more effective than trying to do it well.
I think people hesitate in public speaking. I think people hesitate in your everyday when you're going to speak to warm up. I think that they feel that then they will become fake, when that is the opposite, is what is the truth. You would never, ever, ever expect an athlete to go on that court or that field without a warm up. You just wouldn't.
That's why we spend so much time really working on awakening the instrument, the voice, the body, and the mind. It's those 3 things that need to be in alignment as we come into these tense situations where our whole being wants to shut down.
So what do you think great speakers do? So let's think about the great speakers that we've seen, whether professional ones or ones that you've worked with. Like, the great speakers, what do they do in, let's say, the first 60 seconds that most people miss?
It's amazing. Think about it, right? When you see somebody speaking well, again, I think it comes back to what we're talking about. They're connected to their bodies. They're alive up there, and they're connected to us, the audience. They're breathing. They're really, again, this idea of freedom, being free. They're free up there. There's something that happens. They're free, and then there's also like this vulnerability piece too that can really connect. So when you see a speaker share something, a challenge, or something that was very difficult for them in such a high, intense environment, a spotlight, it can really connect the audience. to them. So, I mean, it's fascinating. Breathing, freedom of physicality, allowing your voice to move the way it wants to move. If you notice the way I speak, it's not just this way. I'm going to talk to you the whole time like this. A lot of people just talk on one level, and you have to explore different cadences in the way you communicate, and that isn't fake. You're just allowing yourself to express words in a way that are meaningful to you.
Yeah.
That's an
I
art
think
form.
also I think also great speakers, really great speakers, do not only what you said, because I do agree those things are there. I think they also surprise us out of the gate. And that surprise might be, to your point, of a moment of vulnerability. So it might be like a moment of silence, which first of all is a surprise. If someone can hold a room without saying anything, everybody's brains wake up and go, wait, what's happening here? And they look up from their page. A quick moment, not too long, because then it gets indulgent, but a moment of silence, and then to say something. And if it's a vulnerability moment of like, I got to share something that happened to me once, and immediately people are like, what's she gonna say? Right now, you got to follow it up with a good story that somehow relates.
Yeah.
And so it could be a moment of vulnerability. It might be, and often is, humor, right? And I would say, if you don't know how to, don't do a joke, do self-deprecation is always a great way to start. You know what I mean? People just tend to like somebody who has a nice humor moment of self-deprecation or something. Or it might be acknowledging the elephant in the room that no one's acknowledging, right? Might be that. Whatever it is, some sort of surprise or something immediately will get, I think great speakers do. They also tend to have, and it's related to that, they tend to have a good hook. So they tend to hook you with something very interesting. And if you want to watch some great speakers, one of my favorites is Marcus Buckingham. And he always talks about how he puts together a puts a speech, and he talks about it from his mentor, how he creates what he calls little pearls. And if he has these pearls that he's collecting over time, and you can imagine it if it's even within your team and you're trying to talk and stand up and say, this is what our group worked on. Think of what are the pearls that I want to string together and have on this necklace, and really start to hook them with one of those stronger sentences. I saw a woman get up recently in a team offsite, and everybody else was not that interesting. And she gets up and she goes, let me just step back for a minute and give this some context. And I was like, and you just saw everybody relax. And she told a little story, and you could tell that it really showed her experience level and her history and her way to be able to communicate tough, difficult ideas in a simple, clear way. And I think they do that really well.
That's awesome. I love that, the pearl piece. And, that connects to having really clear kind of talking points, not kind of,
Yeah.
clear talking points that you are hitting. And it doesn't have to be a lot. It's like one or two per slide. And they're just points that give you the freedom to then tell the story or whatever it is about that point. But I'm going to tell it in my completely open and connected way with the audience, right? So I'm not reading the slide. I think the thing that turns me off the most and that I see happen the most is that people they prepare, but then they're just there reading what they've prepared. And there's no the word that comes to mind is that improv, because Mark Twain also says that it takes me 2 weeks to prepare a great impromptu speech or something, right? Like, you're preparing, but then you're letting it all go and living on the edge as if you've never said it before, right? Because you're with the audience. Speakers who do that, they stand out as extraordinary.
Yeah, that's a great point, Greg, because otherwise, why not just put on a PowerPoint deck with an AI voice to read every slide? But if you want to command a room, then you need to have something that's not up there on that slide that surprises people a little bit or makes it go a little bit deeper, or puts a question out to them to make the audience think. I love that. When you talk about, let's go back, because I want to use your 3 things to focus this conversation. Greg was saying that's important. You're committed, you're connected, and you're authentic, right? If you could just think, how do I make sure I'm doing that every time I get up there and speak? And it might be that you're speaking for a minute. You still should be able to think, am I committed? Am I connected? And am I authentic? So when we talk about commitment, because that's where you were talking about energy, how should people think about energy? Especially if it doesn't feel natural to them. Like, is there anything that you can help them think, like, how do I self-assess my energy? How do I, because most of the time, let's face it, it's about turning the volume up. It's not, I mean, and I don't mean really how loud they speak. I just mean we're not usually telling people's energy to go lower.
Right, right. Like bring it back. We're not really saying bring
Yeah,
it back. We're trying to bring them out more, right? When we're coaching,
yeah,
we're definitely trying to, and most of the time, we're trying to bring people out. So it is about stretching. It is about stretching beyond what feels natural. So we'll do activities or exercises that will get you to step out of your comfort zone because you have to be uncomfortable up there. Like it's so important. Step out of that comfort zone because it is uncomfortable to get up and speak in front of people. So you have to be able to stretch the muscles that allow you to feel confident, right? In that zone. So that's why we do weird things like mwah 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 la 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 me na 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 just to warm up the voice, but it feels silly. It feels silly, but then that feeling when I get back up into the thing, I'm like, hey everybody, I'm Greg Shamie, and I'm very excited to be here today. Why am I excited? I don't know. Do you know? Right? Like so right away, even just saying that, I'm doing it in hopefully a way that's going to be a little bit engaging to you and authentic to me, right? So energy is about awareness, in my opinion. It's about realizing where I'm holding the tensions in my body and releasing that. It's about breathing deep. It's about opening up that physicality to the audience and being an audience member with them, even though I'm speaking in front of them.
yeah. I love that. Is, doing those silly warm-ups, so you can find millions of them, right? To try, but Greg just gave you a perfect example. If you go through that version, that will help you. I think also, you have to think with energy of like, where is my energy when I am me on my best day? And one of the tips that you can use to figure that out is to ask the people that are closest to you in your life, meaning if you have a partner or a spouse or a best friend or kid, whatever it is that's around you all the day, plus the people that you work with the most, to tell you, listen, do me a favor and tell me when you see my energy at its best. Just point it out to me so I can start to observe what's happening with me. What am I doing in those moments that you notice that, right?
And I'll make a connection to that because
Yeah.
it has to do with relaxation and activation. Those are the
Mm.
two words which are in contrast to each other, right? A lot of times we say relax, but then we feel like a spaghetti noodle, right? But we want the spaghetti noodle that's going to stick to a wall, which means it has energy. So you want to be relaxed and free, just like, again, an athlete feels once they've warmed up, they've practiced, and now it's game time and the pressure rises. What do? They breathe, they ground themselves, they get laser focused, they relax their hands, and they know they're going to activate as that 98-mile-an-hour fastball is coming down the pipe. And the boom, it automatically happens, and they fail 7 out of 10 times, and they're still in the Hall of Fame.
I love that. All right. So now that we talked about energy, let's go to connected. What are some tips for people so that they can quickly connect with their audience? What would be some tips that you would say people could try?
Well, I'm always curious. I'm always curious about who the audience is, and I want to know as much about them as possible and what's interesting to them. So audience awareness in terms of who they are, why are they here, and what do they want to get is very interesting to me. That's number one that goes through my head. Number two is I want to make some kind of connectivity as I enter the space. As I'm approaching my talk, right, I want to be talking to people, listening to the speaker before me, because I'm going to connect what they say when I go up, even though hasn't been part of my preparation. I want to connect the dots, right? And so that's huge. Meeting people, being open, actually practicing before I get into the spotlight, being grounded, present, and connected is absolutely key for me. And then when I get into the spotlight, I've done my visualization. I've seen the audience see me as something they want to support and love and uplift. Whether I bumble or make mistakes or drop the ball or what have you, feel like they're there for me and they want me to succeed. Like that visualization for me is huge and helps me ground myself. And then looking at them as I walk out, right?
Yes.
And smiling. There's something about smiling like authentically, like just allowing that smile to come up on me. Oh my God, I'm nervous. I can't believe I'm about to start to talk for 2,000 people. My God. And then it's like, hello, it's snowing outside. I can't believe it. Right. And then somehow I'm in it. Right. And I've begun. Right. The hardest thing sometimes is to begin because our brains are trying to be perfect, do what we've practiced out in front of exactly how we've practiced it, but it's actually letting go of that, being with the audience and trusting the work I've done is going to flow nicely, and that's what builds that piece.
Yeah, I love that. A couple of tips that I can say that I've seen great speakers do in this area of staying connected is that one you mentioned, but I just want to add on like if you're and I'll say like if you're somebody who's going to speak on a stage, that's one thing. If you're going to speak on a stage, I would tell you, and if you're going to a crowd that you do not know, one of the best things you can do, and I've seen you do it, Greg, I've seen the best speakers do it, is they never just come in cold. They warm themselves up and relax themselves by connecting with their audience before they get on that stage. So whether it's welcoming them into the room, so as people are coming in, if I've seen you give people high fives as they come into the space so that before you go up on stage, they go, "Oh, that's the guy who gave me the high five." So immediately they like you. So it's very clever, right, to have that connection. Or it might be that you're having breakfast and it's a smaller, more intimate group. Then maybe you're just asking them like how their commute here was, or like who are they, and introducing them first so that you have a friend in that audience before you get up there. It also allows you to not physically, it also allows you to connect back to something that you heard from the group, because you will find out information of what's going on, what's the hot topic here right now, and then you will be able to bring it back to that. I saw somebody a very famous person do this recently. They came into the room and they're a little bit of a controversial figure politically. Okay. They came into the room. It was a small group they were speaking for, like 40 people, but very CEOs, senior leaders, so forth. The guy came in the room. People have a glass of wine. They're walking around. They immediately beeline to him beforehand to get upset with him about something politically. And I saw him do a masterful thing where he saw their name tag and saw her come in, saw the first thing like, "Hey, I want to ask you about this." So immediately, this is going to be maybe a little bit of conflict, right? So he looks at her name tag and goes, you wouldn't happen to be related to Jeremy, blah, 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 let's say. And she went, "You mean Jeremy, my brother?" And then he was like, "Yeah." And she's like, "Yeah, what?" And then they go down this whole other path. Now, even if she said, "No, I don't know anything about," but why? It's like jujitsu, right? It is like speaker jujitsu, because now she is off the game of fighting with you and into like, you're interested in me and you notice my name. And so then when he got up there on that panel, he was able to bring back those conversations of like people that grew up like me in neighborhoods like so and so did and so and so did. And now you feel connected to that person, right? So I thought that was very clever. And I think the more you can figure out if you're in a room, how to make the connection. The other piece I would say, if you're in a very small room or it's with your team that you already know, the way you do it is everybody's going to, let's say it's often the format that everybody is going to, or a few people are going to present. If you're presenting and you're not first, you are the most active listener to everybody else. You are nodding your head. You are laughing along with them. If it's a joke, you are there for them, because trust me, they notice that. And when you're up there, they're there for you. If you're working on your speech and not paying any attention to them, they are not going to have your back when you're up there.
Yeah, I mean that's huge. Enter the arena prepared and ready, and you've done your warm-ups, and just be with the people, and don't hide. Like a lot of times I find myself like, "Oh, I don't want to ruin the presentation because it's going to be a exciting revealing thing." But no, hey, look, we're all here. let's build connectivity, and then let's have an experience with my talk, which is going to hopefully be our talk.
Yeah. Let's go to authentic. Last one for today's session. When you said, again, he said that to be a great speaker, you need to be committed, connected, and be authentic. So what are some tips for creating authenticity, tapping into your own authenticity, whatever it is? Like, what are some tips for kind of settling into authenticity before you give a speech or when you're giving a speech?
Well, what does authentic mean, really, right? It just means to be me. So, again, observing what happens to me when I get nervous and becoming very aware of what impact the nerves have on my system. So, a lot of times they'll make me speak quickly, and I could be really nervous. I'm going to tell you all about, right? And so if that's just something that happens to me, my mouth can get dry, my shoulders, like you said, come up. All these things that can happen to my instrument, I need to start to really become aware of, because I then need to work against that and make sure that I am not being pushed underwater. Again, it connects back to energy. It connects back to me being my best self in these intense arenas. And so it gives me the opportunity to go, okay, I feel like I'm underwater now. It's not going well. It's like, so what do I have to get myself out of that? And I guess what comes to mind there is my breath, my connectivity with the audience. It's the same, right? Because that is going to help me be free, be authentic, be my best self, knowing that they want me to do well. Like, these things are the tips that really help me to step in front of any audience and have a great experience.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's interesting. I think the reason authenticity becomes difficult is because of sometimes it can feel in direct conflict with the committed energy that you need. So when I have felt myself not settle into my authentic self as much, it's usually because of the nerves, like you said. And those nerves come out as a lot of energy. And so maybe I'm authentic to that. I mean, I'm authentic to, obviously we're all authentic, but it's coming across as either too just reading the words or pushing through an idea that is not where everybody is right now. I think one of the things that can help with authenticity that took a lot of time for me anyway is to acknowledge the truth of how you're feeling. So this isn't always appropriate, but sometimes it's appropriate to say, I'm a little bit nervous up here. Like, y'all are intimidating. Like, sometimes that's appropriate. Sometimes it's not. So you have to feel that out. Sometimes for me, one of the ways that I've been able to do it is if everybody's had like a high energizer in the room and there's a lot of energy, and I can tend to like rush through things. I sometimes need to take a moment to breathe. And so the only way I've been able to do that and again, this isn't appropriate for every room, is to have everybody do that with me. Like, hey guys, we're coming out. Can we all just take a couple breaths together? This will help me, but hopefully it'll help you too. Let's close our eyes if you can, or if you feel comfortable. Let's just take 3 minutes to take some deep breaths so I can just, settle down. And I've done that before, and that has really helped me to ground myself before I talk. And then I think the other thing is a tip for people would be is that things are going to happen that are mistakes. And we often think that these mistakes are the worst thing that happened to us, or, oh my God, I've really blown it, or I forgot this whole section, or I tripped on the way up here, and you think it's the worst thing. And then it ultimately ends up being the thing that makes you a star because people think it was so fun how you handled that or whatever. I had a guy recently in an offsite get up there, and they were, they had the flip chart paper up there with his things, and he went, and every other person had done this, read the things that were on the flip chart and then tear the flip chart paper off to get to the paper that was underneath, right? But for some reason, when he went to pull the flip chart paper, it wouldn't pull off, and it took him like 5 pulls, and it was so funny that eventually because we're all like, oh God, like this is so awkward. And then eventually he's like, oh my God, I'm dying up here. Somebody help me. And then somebody jumped up and helped him pull off the paper, and it made it obviously look like he was so weak that he couldn't even pull a piece of paper. But he was like, I could tell that this is going to dominate how I'm known in this company. but people were laughing and it just released that energy so much that I said to him, I said, this is the best moment of the day so far was that
Yeah.
moment, and you will not be forgotten. But he, of course, at the time, all he wanted to do was be forgotten. Like,
Oh
this
my
is, I
gosh.
feel like I ruined it all. And I'm
Yeah.
like, oh no, what you'll find out later is that was the best moment.
You have to let go of your perfectionist, because
Yeah.
if you're really if you've done the preparation and then you commit to stepping out there and living with the audience on that improv type of way, even though you have your content prepared, it's going to be an experience and mistakes are going to happen, and that's what's exciting. It's live. And so the show must go on. I'll never forget my wife, Stacy, who's a, very very good performer, Broadway performer, but she had just learned how to play the guitar. And this is like in the later part of our journeys, right? And so she learned the guitar and she had to play the guitar on stage, and she was really nervous about playing the guitar and singing this song just because the guitar was a new skill. And so the spotlight, the tension rises. She's out there and she's playing it, and as she's playing it, she's singing, she's playing, the microphone starts to sink, and I'm watching the microphone go from being perfect right there all the way down, and she's still playing, but she can't grab the microphone. She's out there by herself. She can't grab the microphone, so she goes down with it. So she starts going down with it, continuing to play and sing until she's on her knees, still doing it. And then someone comes out and like a tech person comes out and lifts the mic up. She gets up, still playing, still playing. And when she finishes, the tech person finishes, standing ovation. Everyone goes
Amazing.
nuts because she embraced what was happening and kept going, right?
Hmm.
Which is fascinating. And then
Yeah. And
back
it
to
became a bit.
it became something that I won't
Yeah.
forget.
Yeah.
Audience members are. Do you remember that time that performed like the mic? Like it's unbelievable. And those are all the moments that people remember because it's not about what I'm telling you. It's about what you're feeling and the experience you have. So if you're speaking to someone, give them some kind of experience. Give them some kind of feeling because that's going to impact them more than any content you're gonna talk about, and that's hard to do. But the other thing is, I need to have someone to run it by, and
Mm.
I'm a professional who does this all the time and helps people and coaches people. If I'm doing something, I need to run it for Christine and get her feedback because I'm friggin' nervous, and it's not good enough to just do it in my room. I need someone else's feedback always. I need a coach. I need someone pushing me saying, this was great. This needs to be better. What happened to you there? Why isn't that beginning engaging? What happened to you here? Right? Like it really transforms the speaking engagement. So if you're going to take one real kernel from this is obviously practice, 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 get some feedback, do it for someone that you trust that can give you some good feedback, get that instrument ready and warmed up, and then get out there, commit, connect, and bring your best self.
I love it. Thanks, Greg. This is such an important conversation, guys, because every leader presents, whether it's in a boardroom, a client call, a team meeting, the difference is not what you say, right? We didn't talk about content at all. That, it's important to get that good too, but it's mostly the difference we see is how you show up. So here's something to think about. What are you spending your time on? Are you spending the time on your slides, or are you spending the time also on your presence? We see most leaders spend a ton of time getting their slides perfect. They look beautiful, but hardly any time practicing or, like Greg said, running it by someone. But, the best leaders, the ones who really stand out, they aren't just building presentations, they're creating experiences. So you can do that too. Remember Greg's 3 tips about looking at how am I doing in terms of commitment, connection, and authenticity. Greg Shamie, thank you so much for being here today and bringing some of your kernels of wisdom to folks.
Yeah, what a pleasure. Thanks for having me, Christine.
Thanks for spending time here on Stepping Into Your Leadership. I'd like to give a special shout out to our podcast producer, Richard Francisco. Check out our notes for any details. And if you want to get anything more out of this, go to our YouTube channel and please subscribe to Leadership Lab TV. If you heard something today, of course, that resonated with you, do something with it. It's all about the choices that you make. It's what you say in conversations, how you show up in a moment. Share this episode with someone who's maybe starting a new job or stepping into a new level of leadership, and try one idea because it just might create some pretty powerful leadership ripple effects. Until next time, keep stepping in because the room changes when you do.